In 2024, we'll witness the continued splintering of digital experience across multiple channels. Your employees and customers will demand consistent, connected, and exceptional experiences wherever they are and whenever they want them. The Big Bang project of yesteryear is no more. Iterative programs are now the norm. To respond effectively to the challenges that this creates, you'll need to be putting wider strategic wrappers around all of the pillars of your business. This year, it will become increasingly urgent for your organization to build modular systems that provide greater agility as you respond to a culture of constant change and ever-growing expectations. Delivering value will require agility. It will be imperative for you to modify your roadmap as new opportunities and technologies are presented, nowhere more notably than with the explosion of AI. So the two authors that we have speaking today are Lars and Rick. Lars and Rick are both strategists at Unrivaled. Some of you may well know them through work you're doing together. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Lars to the stage. Thank you very much.
First, we'll start off talking a bit around this change in the trend that we see coming up around creating a total experience strategy. So what that really means is kind of breaking down the silos that may exist in your business, and what that means in terms of how we bring a cohesion in the experience, both internally and externally, in the business going forward. So fundamentally, this covers four core areas around creating a multi experience, enabling great customer experiences, what it means in terms of bringing together the employee experience into that, and ultimately a great and cohesive user experience. So this kind of builds on where you see how total experience brings together technology and interactions within and outside of the business, and looking at where the opportunities for breaking down silos and where those then bring in a unified view and a unified direction of where the business is going. So this is ultimately around bringing the physical and the digital together, which is often quite decoupled in how businesses operate today. And this kind of brings a challenge in terms of what it means for where businesses set out to do in terms of their objectives, and how that then aligns to the overarching experience that we're trying to deliver. And we acknowledge it's a complex challenge to address within businesses because of internal processes, in terms of external pressures. So this is where clear leadership and buy-in from the C-suite is the ones that can really bring this forward. And it's a cultural shift in understanding where the existing processes that are in place aren't necessarily fit for continuing on, as this further fragments the experience provided. So it's rethinking where we sit, where the future lies, and a priority in terms of where that is setting us in the future. So this means we need to take a clear and user-centric mindset. Surely not a surprise to all of you, but it's kind of rethinking it in what it means for the end user as well as your employees. And within that, we need to rethink what the digital operating model looks like, what the different people, processes, and platforms and technologies, how those come together in order to deliver that kind of impact. And we would often see this as an evolutionary approach, and it takes a challenge on business for getting into that mindset of the strategy is not fixed, it's ever evolving and ever changing a piece of work that needs to continuously be reviewed within the business. And we build this on the understanding from Gartner, who's predicted that by 2024, organization who deploys a comprehensive total experience strategy will outperform their competitors. And this forms the foundation of where the impetus for this is coming from. And when we kind of start looking at this prediction, we see that it's becoming increasingly business critical across our client base in terms of the increased pressures on efficiency, in terms of where adopting piecemeal technologies and augmenting the existing processes are no longer sustainable. So it's really around understanding where the alignment and where the opportunities lies in creating that focus that aligns to a greater digital vision and within the leadership, and then how that then establishes our organizational wide roadmap rather than just across the core facets of the business. And this means we need to start assessing and being more structured in how we assess our digital maturity, and how we then forms a basis for the total experience strategy that's in the future. So with that, I'll hand over to Rick for the next trend.
Oh, a bit too far. So we'll start with the next one. So composability. So when we look at organizations, there is a real clear need, particularly in the current climate, for every part of that organization to run as efficiently as possible. And when you start to look at this through the lens of technology, what you're often seeing is that organizations are wasting time and money battling with either legacy or incompatible systems, more often than not, effectively square pegs into round holes. And the net result is either usually a financial impact, but actually the more pressing one is that loss of competitive advantage, because so much time is being spent trying to play catch up that you're missing the boat. And it all boils down to that the age-old problem of trying to find this perfect blend of user experience and MarTech. And when Composable came in a few years ago, it was sort of treated as the promised land, this idea of not just separating the front end and the back end, but actually separating out all these pieces in the back end to try and help you build up the perfect system. And all these different products, so the CMS, the DAM, customer data platform, and so on. And in the past few years, what you saw was either people rushing to go and do it, or people hesitating. And often they were hesitating because it's a huge challenge, and there was a lot of fear attached to it about where would you start, how do we do it, and the rest. Now the dust has kind of settled. What you're starting to see is that some were fully justified in going to Composable, some fully justified in sticking where they are. But then there was this middle ground of people, some regretting moving down that route. And a lot of that was down to them just not understanding what Composable really meant. And then the others who were regretting hesitating, actually doing anything, because for them, now they can see their competitors moving further ahead and further away from them. Now, when you look at Gartner, again, I mean, they're still really firmly of the opinion that composability is the solution and that it's vital to all organizations, especially if you're building new applications and also if you're evolving and adapting existing ones, existing digital experiences. Personally, I think some of that, there is some truth to that, but I think there is more nuance to it as well, in that going composable or adopting composability, it's not a simple choice. More so, it's not a technical choice. It actually links very nicely back to what Lars was just talking about with total experience. And the idea is that you can't just look at this through a technology lens. You need to understand what it is you're trying to deliver, what the experience is, where you're going to be delivering it, and then more so, how you're going to support it. So what are the people and the processes that you need? How confident are you? So your capability and your maturity, the scale of what you're trying to do, and the budget. There are all these considerations that start manifesting that need to be thought about. And I think when we move into 2024, the reality is organizations are going to have to come under increasing pressure to get an answer to this, not necessarily to solve it, but to have an answer to what it is. We're getting to this stage now where organizations can't focus solely on the needs of the now. And equally, they can't become fixated on a future that might never come to pass. There's that delicate balance that has to be found in the middle ground of what you're going to do. And I think coupled to that, there are a couple of phrases that always get bounced around. One is best of breed. You've got the other about the monolith or the one source. They're terms that need to be consigned to the past because they're not relevant for the modern digital experience. The focus really needs to be on best of need. And in the past, when we talked about best of need, it often blurs the lines quite a lot with best of breed. It's still this idea of lots of systems and you're just picking the ones that are right for you. I think the definition of best of need is changing, and that's the core thing in 2024, is that best of need really represents what is the blend of technology that you need to enable what you're trying to achieve, which might be a composable approach, it might be a hybrid approach, who knows? It's down to the organization and all those factors that I was talking about. So crucially, it's about finding that plan. It's also connected to that plan about realizing now that big bang replatforms are a thing of the past and that they shouldn't be tackled in that way. They're dangerous, they can be very ineffective and inefficient. More so, it's more about iteration and moving from where you are towards this clear vision and constant iterations. And the key there is constant. It's a constant momentum towards the final goal, not just going partway and stopping, but doing that. And by doing it in iterations, there's a sense of agility as well, so that as things change, as the market changes, as customer needs change, we can start to adjust, we can start to adapt. And it's those organizations that establish that plan as part of that total experience strategy and have those clear iterations. They're the ones that are really going to start to gain ground moving forward. So on to the third trend, which is around placing commerce everywhere, so omni-channel commerce. The modern commerce experience is a very different beast to what has come before. When we look at it again from a customer point of view, customers are increasingly willing to engage on multiple physical and digital channels. And they are the ones who are setting the standards on A, what is an acceptable commerce experience, and B, what is a really strong, engaging commerce experience. And what you're starting to see is that brands are transacting on multiple channels to try and keep up, but it's not perfect. Typically how they've done this in a very reactive way and have started to move out into these channels bit by bit, but they've done it without a plan. And what you're starting to see is that the experience isn't seamless across these different channels. And then towards the back end, the digital ecosystem has been built up piecemeal. So often what you find are workarounds or inefficient processes or compromises that are getting made, all to try and fill the gaps. Really, it's just creating increasing pressure on the teams within the organization to try and meet the needs of the customer. The model itself is unsustainable, and there is likely going to be trouble on the horizon. So taking it back to the customers, now, according to Capital One, and there are many other stats that are out there in the market, customers are transacting on multiple channels. It is a common behavior now that is happening. But the crucial part to this is that not only are they transacting on those channels, but they have some expectations that come with it. The first is around the need for it to be seamless. If they are engaging and transacting with you on one channel, they don't want to start all over again on another. It needs to have some continuity for them because it's part of one experience as far as they're concerned. And the other angle to this is the richness of the experience. When we look at omnichannel commerce, it's no longer just transacting rather. So not just product pages and baskets. That is the core part of it, but actually commerce is growing far beyond that. And you're starting to see the emergence of all these other areas, from content-driven commerce, which has been around for quite some time, that injection of storytelling into the commerce process. Live commerce, where we can see customers engaging with brands and with influencers in real time and creating a very different shopping experience for themselves. And even communities starting to emerge around these. And you're seeing these in lots of different brands, lots of different industries that start to emerge to support that and create, again, a whole different dimension to the omnichannel commerce experience. So managing a commerce experience becomes a lot more work for most merchants to do. And crucially, if they're working on this architecture that's being built up piecemeal, typically they're not fit for purpose. They are constrictive, and they'll inhibit the ability to deliver really effectively across those channels. And the problem is not necessarily from the front end, it's the back end. It's this idea of fragmentation that's starting to happen. And you need those systems, so your commerce engine, your order management, your PIM, your CMS, DAM, all these other pieces to work together in unison. When they work together in unison, you start to be able to deliver more effectively, and your team is able to work more efficiently in the background. Now, within 2024, it's a very similar story to what's going to happen with Composable, that we are going to see some merchants start to take stock. Rising costs, just the pressures that are put on the team mean that you can't keep going down the way that they're going. And what they're going to be doing is starting to look at the early adopters, the people who have made the mistakes, they've put the best practices in and learned their way through in building out these composable API-first commerce solutions. And you're going to see them start to look at those and start to think about how they can move towards it. And kind of supporting that is going to be a real shift in the market. So vendors like Shopify, who are making a real play for the enterprise sector with Plus and the commerce components, tools like Commerce Tools and Elastic Path and these API-first engines are all going to be starting to take ground away from the more traditional vendors, the ones, the monoliths, who've been dominating for a long time, which starts to change how people think about building modern commerce experiences. And like with Composable, it can seem like a really big task. There's a lot to think about and a lot to do. And even more so in this world where you built this up piecemeal, you're stepping away from a world that's being constructed by you. And often that world has some comfort in it because you understand it, you know what's gone into it. Also frustrates in equal measure because you're not quite doing what it is you want it to be doing. So it's a very similar story in understanding the vision, where you're trying to get to. What does the modern commerce experience look like for the organization? And then looking at those iterations. And particularly when you look at it in this world, you start to unlock more tools that you can start to use. Things like value stream mapping, where you'll see a lot more of that being used across the year, with people interrogating the commerce journey and starting to understand where the effort, where the reward is at different points in that journey, so they can start to prioritize and understand which bits need to be tackled first as this moves through. Right, so on to Lars then for the fourth trend.
Perfect, thank you. So the fourth trend is really around kind of the greater adoption we see in experimentation, and this is a long-running trend that we see is now shifting gear as data collection and the desire for evidence-based decision-making has for a long time been a desire, but we see many organizations being challenged with figuring out what data is the right to go by and what's the rigor that you need in order to make a confident decision. So increasingly, we see more and more desire and shift towards going from the data collection side of things into being more specific about what you collect and the desired actions you want to take from the data that you collect. And it's within here we see experimentation playing a key role in those kind of informed decisions and incremental improvements that's possible to create. And we can kind of look at it as having clear hypotheses that links up to what the business is trying to do, and within that sits clear objectives and a clear direction from the business, and within their digital real estate and ecosystem, what do you want to improve and how do you collect the right information and data to make those decisions going forward. And in order to succeed, you kind of need to mature your process in terms of how you approach the data collection and the actioning of data, the methodology in terms of the experimentation you do, and how then you use that in order to improve your digital experience. So this means having a clear financial model that underpins the experimentation you're creating, and using that as the evidence for uplift that you achieve, what's successful, what's not, and how you go about testing and refining hypotheses until you get a satisfactory uplift and result of those experiments. So this means we are moving increasingly from that type of tactical testing of smaller bits on your experience to prioritize areas of the experience and a strategic program that focusing on the strategic outcomes that's desirable for the business. So in terms of that, we see and Optimizely, which is a partner we've been working with closely in terms of the experimentation space, have gone through a lot of experimentation. They're a really solid partner in that sense, and we can see a great sense of uplift in the results on tests and experiments run. And the trajectory of where this is taking us in the future is clear that this is the approach that is increasingly adopted, where cost efficiency and revenue driving activities through data and data-driven decision making is a core part of it. And the interesting part of what we see as well is around there's only a need for a few really successful tests in order to achieve the level of uplift and impact that you couldn't do just guessing and assuming without the rigorous process that goes into experimentation. So in terms of our prediction then for where we see this trend is going within within this year, is really that non-stop learning and continuous testing is increasingly going to be a key tool within the toolbox of marketers in 2024. So it's really those who are brave and those who are clear in terms of what they're trying to experiment on, what they're trying to figure out, and what the expected results of those are. That's the ones that's really going to win ground this year. And within that, we need clear hypotheses and refinement of those in terms of what the outcomes are, how we track it, what success look like. So we've seen that just with 3 to 5 experiments run that are successful, we tend to be able to make up just the licensing cost of running experimentation tools, and everything above that, it has a possibility of making a significant impact on the revenue that is generated from your digital experience. So this is where making sure that you run sufficient amount of tests and having a clear overarching view from a business point of view down into what your digital experience provides. Building this on key objectives is where the key areas of growth lies and where the key opportunities for marketers in the next year lies in our point of view. So I'll hand you back to Rick for the last trend.
Cool, thanks. So on to AI. Now, I think AI itself, or AI technology rather, dominated the MarTech conversation across 2023, like nothing really that's ever come before. I think a lot of that is down to the fact that AI moved from the realms of science fiction to this viable source of opportunity. We had vendors who were taking the AI models, the raw AI and machine learning models, bringing these into MarTech, whether that is through search, through content creation, collaboration tools, all these different areas, even experimentation. And AI itself, it really offers that ability for organizations to improve how they operate internally, how they engage externally. There's a real lot of value that comes with it. The influence and application's only ever going to grow from where we are now. And like I say, it can be used in so many different ways. You can use it in terms of data, which is really where it started, interpreting these vast and complex data sets to generate valuable insight and prediction, through to driving operational efficiencies with the tools that I've mentioned around collaboration and planning, even through to that external engagement. So the customer facing areas, neural search, conversational interfaces, SEO, and beyond. So lots and lots of applications that can come with AI. Now, in the past, we've talked a lot about, in previous trends, about conversational AI, and that is still going to continue to develop and to grow. But when you start to look at the statistics that are out there around AI and its adoption across industries, particularly like the ones on screen, it's very clear that actually the greatest appetite is coming from within organizations. You've got employees from different functions and teams, some of which are non-digital teams, who can see very clearly how AI can have a real difference on how they work for the better, and are beseeching employers to start to invest in these areas and create these for and bring in AI for them. And I think a lot of that points to the predictions, so the reason why we call it operational AI for 2024. We're obviously still going to see those advances in the customer facing, but they are much slower on the uptake for a lot of customers because there's a lot of trust that has to be built in order for people to engage with them. So the real uptake is going to be internal. And what you're finding is that AI is increasingly affordable and it's easy to obtain. Like I say, all these different platforms, from digital experience platforms to DAMs to search to experimentation and beyond, they're all embedding a version of their AI, usually built from sort of common models that are in there. So there's lots of opportunity for people to be able to snatch up these products, and you're going to see organizations start to grab those very quickly. The kind of flip side to this, though, and the double-edged sword of all of this is the danger that this brings in, and something that's really going to differentiate which organizations do well and which don't. If you implement AI correctly, it'll supercharge the business. It brings so much value, whether that is money made or cost saved. The danger is that and this is not a new danger that's come in, it's something that's always happened when there's new technology, is that people reach for solutions in silos. And often with a team who will be focusing on a problem that they have and will reach for that solution and bring it in. The danger is that you're creating inefficiencies immediately within the organization, because more likely than not, there are other teams in that business who could use that same technology, but they're having to go out and get their own solutions. Or equally, if you're focused down in the weeds and not looking at the bigger picture, often you might be solving a problem you never needed to solve, because you shouldn't have been doing that in the first place, no matter how efficiently you're now doing it. It all goes back full circle to this idea of total experience strategy. And this idea that if you can understand not only the customer experience, but the employee experience as well, pardon me, if you can understand that, you'll understand not only what it is you're trying to deliver, but you'll understand the exact processes you've got that are needed to deliver that experience, which may be in place or may not be, the data, the technology, all these different layers of the cake that you need to start to understand. And if you can do that, you then have a far clearer picture of where AI is going to make a difference and have the most value, not just within a team, but actually across the organization, and how it can be used in the best possible way. And it's really those organizations that take that time to take a step back before just reaching for the solution, to understand what it is they're trying to do, and then looking at how AI can sit in there and achieve the future state experience, what you're trying to drive towards, not just solve for that problem of today. So that was all of the trends that we wanted to go through. So I'll hand off to Miranda.
Hi, thank you so much, guys, for that really great insight. It's interesting to see how, starting from a position of total experience, we've gone full circle back to total experience, bringing in a lot of very complex challenges that achieving that requires this year for marketers and digital leaders aligning around some key principles. So finally, thank you very much, Lars and Rick, for sharing your insights today. And we look forward to hearing from any of you who would like to talk about these topics further with us. Thank you very much and have a good day.